Hello class, my name is Jada Brown and my persuasive speech is on mass incarceration and longer, harsher punishments do not decrease the likelihood of crime or reoffending. The scenario I want you guys to think about is an 18-year-old boy that is about to graduate high school. He doesn't get into much trouble, but maybe he gets wrapped up in the wrong crowd. Perhaps he just lives in a neighborhood where crime is the norm and perhaps he needed something, so he stole it. He stole a pair of clippers and has never gone before a judge before, but this judge decides to make an example out of him. It gives him a really, really hard punishment, 20 years in jail. Now this is a real story, and I think it reflects some of our thoughts and our ideals in our country about mass incarceration. And my question is, does mass incarceration really work? Or are we just stowing people away and never really getting to the root of the problem? I argue for lesser punishments, but also rehabilitation within our justice system. The problem with mass incarceration. The United States' current incarceration rate is 5 times higher than the rate throughout most of the 20th century and any other countries. Written by Lynn, a peer-reviewed journal author. Most of the crimes regulations put into place that are still applicable to today were put into place over 40 years ago, during a time where there was a lot of, you could say, rallies for like the 3 strikes you're out rule, which basically means even if it was minor offenses or whatever, 3 strikes you're doing hard time, you're doing it for a long time. And I think sometimes in our society, we think that the harsher the punishment, definitely lock away the key and throw it away. But in reality, a lot of these times, these people are going to be released at some point. And we have to think about that, because if they're going to reoffend, that's just going to show more problems in our society that we'll have to deal with later. So I argue, let's deal with it now. When we put people away into prison, we leave them feeling discarded and separated from their families. And the sentences don't stop inmates from reoffending, nor do they bring people to deal with their problems directly. And our prison systems just aren't set up to really incorporate their mental health or their well-being or their human rights that they do still deserve. Here's some data. In 2019, it was found by Clark, the total arrests were 40% of whites, 47% Hispanics, and 46 blacks. By the 9th year of them being released, 87% of blacks and 81% of whites and Hispanics were released within those 9 years, had been rearrested after that time, meaning that they reoffended. That's over 80% of the people released in 9 years reoffended and ended up right back in prison. And this is a non-conducive way that our justice system works, where these people are being released, but they honestly have a higher than 50% chance of reoffending and coming right back into our prison systems. And even if they come back, some people may say, well, fine, they belong there. But the truth is that that means that they committed another crime in our society that is going to affect one of us at some point that made them reoffend. And sometimes these crimes get worse and worse as they go on. So I argue that the length of the time does not fix the untreated problem, and I advocate for rehabilitation rather than locking them up and throwing away the key. With rehabilitation as a lesser, harsher punishment, it gives inmates a chance to be released into society and not fail again. They need human rights like regular schedules, social interactions, regular sunlight, and need to have a feeling of self-identity and worth. And I just want to take some time to speak to violent crimes, because I understand that a lot of people understandably are like, but what about those who do like terrible, heinous things? I get it. Data shows that violent offenders have a over 64% chance of reoffending within the first 8 years of being released. And this was written by Prison Legal Laws. Meaning that even though they served a higher time, they served a long sentence, whether that be 20 years, whether that be 30 years in prison, whatever have you, they served a long time, they still have over a 50% chance of reoffending, that these people are gonna be back in our society. And I advocate for rehabilitation to really get to the root of the problem, so hopefully they won't continue to be a problem in our society. Perhaps we can help them when they're younger, because a lot of people, data has found that they did do an offense, maybe it was small or not, when they were younger, and I wonder if we would have helped them when they first came into the system, and shown them different ways to handle their anger management or whatever have you. Would they have reoffended later on in life and done something so much larger and so much more harmful? And I just think that there has to be a way to prevent some of this, or at least there has to be another way. We have to try a different tactic, and I think that's found in rehabilitation for our justice system. Mass incarceration sets our inmates up for failure once they're released. They don't know how to take care of themselves, they can't get a job, and on top of everything, they're already got this label over their head that guarantees they're gonna have a hard time finding housing, friends, and they have to let other people know what the offense that they did. I don't have a problem with them letting other people know. I just think we're not setting them up to succeed. We're kind of setting them up to go right back where they came from, because that's the only place that they can actually be. This is due to them living in tight, small quarters, lack of regular movement, lack of social interaction, lack of regular sunlight, and overall, we're just breaking their self-worth and their identity while they're in the prison systems. I think that if we truly want a more cohesive and conducive society, we have to start looking at our mass incarceration problem differently and addressing it at hand. We have to try a different approach, and it's gonna be uncomfortable, and it may spend a lot of money, but they're worth it, because they're gonna come back into our society regardless. So it's either we deal with them now or we're gonna deal with them later. I argue for less mass incarceration. I argue for us to reflect on how mass incarceration has damaged some of our society, to advocate for them to keep families together, and to advocate for their self-worth, for their well-being, for our prison systems, for our justice systems, to start looking at mental health and involving that, incorporating that into our justice system, allowing them to have movement, allowing them to have jobs, allowing them to live in a space that isn't so stale and frail. I just argue that mass incarceration is outdated. It's been outdated for a long time, and it doesn't make sense that for us to be one of the wealthiest countries in the world, that we have the largest percentage of prisoners in our jail system. I think we could do better. I know we could do better, and that's what I advocate for. Thank you guys so much. My name is Jada Brown. Have a great day.